Guys, Dan Hendriksen here. We're at Torquay Golf Club. We're in the studio today, and I thought I would answer maybe a couple of questions that have come in with regards to Will Farley and his game. And in particular, today we're going to focus on his putting. I've brought James Urqhuart in, who's our head coach here at Torquay. He's a bit of an expert when it comes to Sam Putt Lab, and you will have seen him on the channel before. But James and I are going to go through Will's putting and just share with you some of the positives and possibly some of the negatives that Will has in his game, and see if there's anything that might be able to help you with your own game. Wilbur.
Hello.
They've asked some questions and I feel like we need to answer them.
Okay.
Now, is putting probably one of the best parts of your game? Would you say it's a strong part of your game?
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say it's the part of the game I enjoy the most as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Do you think it's the part that you probably practice the most?
Wouldn't practice distance-wise, but starting line, I'd say, yeah.
You do.
Yeah, practice quite a bit on starting line.
And where do you do that? Do you do it on the putting green, or do you do that
in the studio, at home, or on the putting green?
So it's the easiest part to practice, isn't it, in some ways?
Yeah, so it's only like the first 5 feet. That's all I have to look at. Watch the ball go end over my big black line.
Okay. And have you had putting lessons in the past? Is it something that you've worked on with coaches, or is it something you've just done yourself?
Never had a putting lesson.
Never had a putting lesson?
No, always done it by myself.
And tell me about the putter that you use.
So I've got an Odyssey. It's Stroke Lab 7.
Yeah.
With a slightly bigger grip. I'm not sure what it's called.
Fatter grip on there.
Yeah. It's got 3 degrees of loft,
okay,
and it's got like a little insert, so it's a bit softer on the face.
Okay, and is it a shape, obviously, that your eyes have drawn to? Were you fitted for it, or how did it work?
Never fitted. I tried one of my friends, what was an older model, slightly bigger, and I actually bought that off of him, and then it broke, so then I got this one here.
James, thank you very much for coming in, having a little look at Will's putting. Now, you've looked at his putting stroke before in the past, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Yeah, me and Will have had a session on Sam. It wasn't a lesson as such, but we were just having a look at we're having a look at his numbers. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got Sam Putt Lab here today, and we're going to have a little look at some of the numbers that Will is delivering. Now, Will is obviously a very good putter.
Highly skilled, yeah.
Highly skilled when it comes to putting. And was there anything that kind of jumped out to you when you've done previous testing with him?
Yeah, interesting. He's got an interesting dynamic loft.
Okay.
So he's got a forward press,
which I want to talk to you about that as well. I think it's more of a trigger for him, but
yeah, it is. Yeah, he gets it rolling. He gets it rolling nice.
Yeah,
but you don't see much predicted launch with Will's stroke.
Okay, right. Well, best thing to do is if we get him to hit some putts on Sam, and then we'll report back the numbers and just share with him what he's doing. He might not want to hear those numbers, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know whether
I certainly want to have a little look at them. So let's get Will to hit some putts and let's get some numbers from him. All right?
Spot on.
Talk to me then, boys. Talk to me. What's been going on, James, with his putting?
Yeah, so we've just taken some raw data, and his stroke is looking really nice. So that backs up what I'd be. Yeah, exactly. It's what I'd be expecting from the putts that I've seen hold from Will. So we're starting off with his aim at address. It's consistent. So Will, you putt with a line, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Will's got a line on his ball, so he'll be on the money with that. He'll be lining it up exactly where he wants to go. There'll be a lot of feel with that, but we can already tell straight away that he is lining it up exactly the same spot every time in the data that we've taken. At impact, he's got a tendency. So when I'm doing a lesson or when I'm doing a fitting, I will always factor in tendencies. So Will has the face closed, slightly closed at impact. But he does it consistently. So I'm not necessarily going to change someone. Like he said, he's never had a lesson in his life. I'm not going to suddenly look at his tendency and go, well, we need to change that and make that square, because what is square? If he's holding putts, there's no such thing as square. It's only what we've got him calibrated up for. So the fact that he's slightly closed and consistent with it, I like that. It's something that he can work with. So I'm guessing, Will, when you line a putt up, if it was dead straight, say from 10 feet, you'll probably
I'll be slightly further right than left, as you say. Yeah, and it's just like being consistent. I know if from 20 foot, if I'm going to pull it slightly, it's not going to be a hole away, it's going to be maybe
Correct,
half
yeah.
a cup or something like that, so it's not that dramatic.
Exactly. And I would see that all the time in lessons. If someone has got a dramatic pull, the likelihood is that it's not going to be very consistent. With Will, it's small, it's 2 degrees closed, that's not a lot, and it's so consistent that I wouldn't even be looking at it as an issue, basically. Path is dead neutral and very consistent again. And strike is very, very good. Now, strike is often good with someone who's got a good path. As you know, path affects the strike. And his strike is very, very central. Lie angle is very neutral. And I'm not really seeing anything at all with his strike. I wouldn't be changing the length. Whether he's adapted to that as a good player, the length of the putter is debatable. Probably likely, judging by a player like Will. These types of players. Will's like a kind of Torquay Bubba Watson, where he can just you put a club in his hand and within 5 or 6 balls he'll start adapting to it himself. Obviously most people aren't like that.
Yeah, the actual putt is only 33 inches, so for someone that's almost 6'4", it's like quite short, you know.
Correct, exactly. So if someone came into me for a fitting, we could argue, you know, static fitting. I wouldn't be putting Will in a 33-inch putt, but it goes to show that a lot of it is down to feel. And for Will, if he likes a 33-inch putter, that works for me. With regards to rotation, there's not a lot of it, but what he has got is very, very consistent. So that ties in quite nicely to the putter.
Face balanced, yeah.
Correct, yeah, exactly. The number 7 Odyssey that he's got is a face balanced putter, and I'm not seeing basically any rotation at all. So that works. That ties in really nicely with what he's using. And again, face angle in relation to path is perfect, as we could tell by his face at impact. And this is a really, really important part that I want to touch on, is his dynamics. So that's essentially his rhythm and tempo, you could call it. And his rhythm and tempo is really, really good. And that's what I tend to see from players who hole a lot of medium to long range putts. So we're talking anywhere between sort of 10 and 30 feet. I'm sure Will is probably holding his fair share in comparison to a lot of other players, and that is because you need good pace, and you will get that from your rhythm and tempo.
I'm just looking at the screen, just looking at wiggly lines. I don't really have a clue, to be honest.
Exactly, yeah, the graphs. So these graphs, we want these graphs to be flowing. So
Okay.
each putt that you've hit has got a different colour.
Yeah.
And because you can't really see the colours, that essentially means they're all blended into one. So that tells me straight away. What I'll see from a good putter is you'll see a flowing graph, and you'll see all the lines clumped up together.
So that means that all the putts were quite consistent, yeah.
Exactly, all the putts you had a very, very similar change in direction. So when he's got to his backstroke, accelerated at the same speed, impact was at the same point. So distance control is going to be very, very good, and that's what we're seeing from here. And again, just something that I would like to say in terms of input on timing is he's got quite a quick stroke. So it's quite a punchy stroke, which I think goes in his favour. The quicker kind of maybe potentially taking out any inconsistencies. I wouldn't say it's too quick, it's just a poppy stroke, and I think that helps with his rhythm and tempo.
So what would that do then? Would that like stop the decel or something like that? Just means
Yeah.
when you say a punchy stroke, is that from the back going through, or is that on the way back and through?
Exactly.
It's a
exactly
Snedeker.
right.
a
It is a
Snedeker.
Snedeker, yeah. He's the Snedeker of Torquay. From the beginning of the stroke, it's quick back and quick through.
Okay.
What about his loft? Did you mention his loft?
Yeah, his launch. Yeah, so we've got that at the end here. So, so he's creating topspin, which is reasonably rare for what I see. Surprisingly, most people would think I get topspin on my putts, but we're talking about impact here. So if I put a high-speed motion camera next to the majority of putters, players putting, you wouldn't see topspin as they hit it. You would see it jumping, skidding, and then rolling. Certainly on a player who's creating backspin. If we've got neutral spin, you may begin to see little less skid. With Will, as soon as he hits the putts, you'll see a minor jump, and it will just be rolling straight away, which is perfect.
So I am actually hitting up on the ball then, slightly.
100% hitting up on the ball, yeah. So what Will does is he's got a forward press, which is kind of like your trigger, isn't it?
Yeah, I do it with every club, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of like his trigger to hit the putt, I think, and that just gets him in the zone.
That's de-lofting the putter.
It's de-lofting the putter, exactly.
Which we're seeing it impact, aren't we?
We are, yeah, and it is. He's still got positive predicted launch.
Yeah.
So we're seeing topspin, we're seeing positive predicted launch, not very much, 0.5 up of predicted launch. Which isn't a lot. I would say potentially I would like to see a little bit more, depending on the speed of the greens that you're playing on.
And how would you say your pace putting is, or your delivery of putting is for slower greens? Because obviously this, I think, works really well for quick greens.
Correct.
Which is where Will's going to be playing majority of his golf. If you think about it, he's playing on the Euro Pro Tour next year, so he's going to have quick greens. How would you say your pace or your control of putting is on slower greens?
I'd say it's quite similar to quicker greens, to be honest. Like we're playing out of Torquay, the green's always quick here, so maybe that's why I have a tendency to de-loft it slightly. That could be the reason. But
do you think?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Do you think because of the skill set that he has, which, let's be honest, he could pretty much turn his hand at any sport that I've seen him play.
Correct.
Do you think that when he gets on the slow green, he delivers a slightly different loft?
Exactly, yeah. I think that when you put him on greens Torquay in the winter, I think if we strapped him up to Sam whilst he was hitting those putts, I could almost guarantee that if we're seeing good length, it's because he's changing his predicted launch, and he'll just be doing that as a
natural. Not even he's unaware. You're probably unaware that you're even doing.
No, not a clue. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just the natural ability coming out of him.
And it's quite rare. I wouldn't see that with a lot of people, but Will would be one of the.
So the only thing that you would potentially change from Will is if he came and complained to you that he was struggling to putt on slower greens.
Correct, yeah.
That's the only thing out of everything that you've seen here.
Yeah.
It's very natural.
Yeah.
But it's very, very much, that's all you would change with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, but how does that make you feel after sort of looking at the numbers? You know, you're very much a field player.
Yeah.
So, you know, does that give you confidence moving forward?
I'm happy that it's more positive criticism than negative, because obviously I've never had lessons before, so it's definitely going to give me a little bit of confidence. Yeah.
And do you think moving forward that just keeping an eye on your numbers, like what James is saying there, is a good thing for you, or do you think that you're just going to adapt as time moves on?
I think once in a while it's definitely worth to go and have a look, because I could get bad habits. I could change away from that, and if I do, I could start missing putts further left or pushing them out right.
Yeah.
So I think it is, for me, like a little MOT. So every couple of months, just have a little look.
So there you go. There's a little insight into what is happening with Will's game, and in particular, obviously, with his putting. I think it's so interesting. If you look at the numbers of what we're getting from the Sam Putt Lab, it's saying that there's negatives in what he's doing there, as in he's not producing the perfect stroke, and there's small subtle changes that possibly James would make to him, but ultimately, is it going to improve his game? The chances are not really, not right now. If he sees some changes in his game that he wants to improve on, there is areas there that he could work at to try and improve that. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on Wilbur's putting, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on the Sam Putt Lab as well. I'd like to hear if you've been for a Sam Putt Lab lesson and you've seen some faults in your game that the coach has asked you to work on. Put your comments down there. I think the important message from this one today is that you don't have to be absolutely perfect to be a good putter. You just have to be consistent in what you're delivering. Don't forget, if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button if you like what we're doing. And as always, stay safe, and we'll catch up with you again soon.